Thanks for tuning into Ahead of the Spread, the Closing Line Value's new weekly show, talking the latest in sports news, reviewing last week's picks, and taking a closer look at the upcoming matchups we have our eye on and more. I'm Tacoma Blend, and with me this week, once again, is Yes Way Jose.
What's up, TB? How you doing, buddy?
Doing great, man. Always good to have you here, buddy. Before we get into some news, let's see some trivia.
Trivia, this is sports trivia. It's a segment about a fact you don't know. Probably trivia, something super significant. Probably so significant. Totally trivia about a sports related thing. The sports news segment of the show.
All right, Jose, Super Bowl matchup is set. Those conference games were, for me, it was Jekyll and Hyde. We had an absolute banger of a matchup with the Rams and the Seahawks. Two Goliaths going at it. And then kind of a dud of a game, in my opinion. Probably one of the worst conference games to watch in recent memory with the Broncos and the Patriots. Granted, the snow in the second half got pretty wild, so kind of tame things, but Vrabel is just ready to punt it pretty much the entire second half. Didn't want to make a mistake, and strategy worked. The Broncos couldn't get it done, so they scored the first 7 points, opted to go for it on fourth down deep in Patriots territory in the first half. Didn't get it, never scored again, lost 10-7. I don't know. What's your takeaway from the conference games?
My biggest takeaway, I think, is that Seattle and the Rams was the Super Bowl, and now we're got a little bit of bonus football here. Did you expect anything more from that Patriots Broncos game? The Broncos are going with their backup QB who hadn't played an NFL game since 2022 or something like that. Not even Sean Payton can, I think, salvage that situation. So not surprised. And I also think I saw that it was with 10 points, it was like the lowest point total that the Patriots had in a win in 40 playoff victory. So it was just a dud of a game. But not surprising. I think the Patriots are who they are. The Broncos, unfortunately, were a lesser version of who they are. And we're just kind of left with the Pats Seahawks Super Bowl. I
mean, it's just such a bummer the way that thing panned out. 7-0. They kicked that field goal, 10-0. I know, everything's just if this, if that, but they opt not to do it. Patriots get the ball. But even later in the game, Stidham he looked okay early on, but then just one really bad mistake with pump faking 6 times and then throwing it behind him. Looked like it was tipped, but regardless, Patriots are on the way to the Super Bowl. So,
yeah, I do think, to the Patriots' credit, and I think probably to Drake Maye's credit, they do what it takes to win. So they can grind it out. They can do what's absolutely necessary without being super flashy, what it takes to win. Can they do that against the Seahawks? Probably not, but they do have that ability. They're gamers in that way, a la, Mike Vrabel. So wouldn't count them out, but completely out. But I think it's gonna be a tough haul for them at this stage.
Yeah. I saw someone early on place like a $1.1 million wager on the Patriots to win straight up at plus 188. So interesting. It's one game, and game planning it 2 weeks out. Vrabel's a good coach, so you never know. It probably good value for that bet right now because everyone saw that snow game where they just laid low. They didn't want to make a mistake. They just kept punting, pinning Broncos deep. But still, man, you see that Seattle's got a great defense, great, the offense is humming, the run game's humming. I mean, what outside of Woolen getting his third taunting unsportsmanlike penalty of the season, that's Seahawks has the most, I think 5. It's like outside of that weak point, even though he's a decent defender. I don't know. It just feels like this is a Sea Chickens W, but that's why they play the game. Yeah.
And this is what I will say is the last time the Patriots had a head coach who was entering his second stint as a head coach and a quarterback who was in his second year was 2001, when the Patriots were supposed to lose to the Rams in the Super Bowl and a dynasty was launched. So, I don't know, but you can't completely rule it out. I don't know if Drake Maye's Tom Brady, but it's happened before.
Drake mid. He's not that guy. He's not, I don't know. I think he's again, credit, you made the Super Bowl, but arguably the most fraudulent schedule and path in the history of NFL. And now
third worst strength of schedule behind San Francisco and New Orleans. Their path included a Houston team with Stroud, who just looked like utter crap, and a severely neutered Broncos team. So they have basically had just a path laid out for them to make it to the Super Bowl. I do think Mike Vrabel is a good coach. So yeah. I think there's a lot of belief and a lot of confidence in what's going on there. Some teams do really well as the underdog, and that can be a mentality that you can really feed into and feed off of going into the game. So I think the Patriots have a puncher's chance here, but the Seahawks are battle tested. I mean, just in the last 2 weeks, I know you don't think very highly of the Bears, but that was a gutty win against the Bears in Chicago.
Yeah. After
that ridiculous, miraculous 4th down play for a touchdown to give that up and stay calm and collected and do what it takes to still win that game on the road in a hostile environment. Chicago was on fire. It was super cold, and they just went in there and they took care of business. And they took care of business against San Francisco, against the Rams. They kept Stafford, who's probably the MVP. They kept a lid on him for the most part. So I think that they're battle tested.
Yeah, for sure. You'll have to talk to me next week, but I think I might juice the alt lineup. Seattle minus three touchdowns or something like that. I just maybe a little sprinkle on that. I mean, just for the value, it's an all or nothing game. They're not playing to keep it close. So Seattle punches in the mouth, gets a punt return for a touchdown. Rashid Shaheed is so explosive. Drake Maye is just throwing. He's fumbling the ball. He's turning the ball over. And that's why Vrabel just said, hey, hand the ball off twice and one check down and one bootleg or whatever. He great, well coached. But you can hide those warts and blemishes for so long. And, I just think that Seattle exposes those and might run away with it. I'm not going to go crazy on that, but I'm considering it. But as of right now, I think Seattle minus the points plus a little sprinkle on the alt line is what I'm looking at.
Do you see Darnold as a liability in any way? I do want to point out that he led the league in turnovers, in quarterback turnovers this year. Is there if you're the Seahawks, are you gonna put Darnold in a position to make a mistake that could cost you the Super Bowl? Or are
I
you
mean,
gonna play a conservative with him?
Yeah, great question.
Especially when you're facing a secondary like the Patriots secondary.
Yeah, I mean it's a really good secondary, but I mean just amazing receiving core, great play calling. They have Kenneth Walker, MSU alum, just running all over up and down. I know we talked about it last week, but I think they've got so many options. I would imagine early on they keep they keep Sam Darnold in a good play calling wise to avoid those very mistakes that you're talking about. And I mean it's rightfully for you to ask that question, because I mean if you go back like the Texans, like they threw away the game. Stroud interception. Stiddy last week, just threw the ball behind him, gave the game away. You know what I mean? So I mean, and then play calling and decision making by coaches, arguably, who doesn't make the mistakes is definitely a way to win some games sometimes. And obviously you got to make some plays. So I do think balancing that and keeping Darnold in a good state of mind. But I mean, I think the guy's proven it pretty well this season, and I think the Seattle offensive line will do enough to give him protection. He's got Kupp as an outlet valve. I don't know. I do think that we're going to see a Sam Darnold mistake for sure, but I think Drake Mid's going to have a few more than Sam. So we'll see. I don't know. That's why they play the game. Yeah.
I'm actually rooting for Sam Darnold. I think he's probably the most interesting story in this game. I love a late bloomer story. I love a redemption kind of arc for him. To see him, holding that Vince Lombardi trophy at the end of the season, I think would be pretty cool. If only because it just, it sometimes takes a lot of work to succeed and to get to the top. And it's, I just think it's a nice story to see somebody who's put in the work, who's been kind of cast aside multiple times, left for dead, and who's just kind of kept going and kept doing the work. And, look at where he's at now. He played really well in that game against the Rams. He was on top of his game on this last weekend. So, it's just a matter of, is that who's going to show up in the, on the biggest stage against a pretty good defense and secondary in the Patriots? It's going to be interesting.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, back-to-back champs in both college and NFL with really good stories like the Hoosiers, and then Seattle would be, or, Sam Darnold with Seattle would be pretty awesome for sure.
Yeah.
All right, let's pivot over to NCAA basketball, and maybe not such a feel-good story, but more of a state of frustration. The madness that's going on in the NCAA. Bediako back at Bama after going to the NBA. Granted, the G League, but the dude was on the G League ballot for the NBA All-Star Game 4v4 tournament. All of a sudden, he's on back on Alabama's roster, and got the temporary restraining order signed by an Alabama donor, happens to be the judge. I mean, of course, right? No shame, dude. What?
I think these things have to get sorted out, and I guess this is the way that they're going to get sorted out. It's just a bummer that, let's say after the end of this, let's just say there's resolution here, and he's got to come off the roster. What does that mean when you're assessing Alabama's season this season, right? I sent you that tweet from your boy from your hometown, Michigan State newspaper, saying that he intentionally docked them in his top 25 ballot because he can't give them credit when they've got a potentially dirty player on their roster. And they did drop, I think, 6 slots in the top 25. I think they're going to be penalized there. It'll be interesting to see if they're penalized elsewhere. Is the committee at the end of the season going to factor that into seeding in the tournament? It's just messy, and it just erodes the integrity of the game, when kind of the integrity game is just being kind of eroded from multiple different sides. It's a bummer to see, but it's these questions and these issues have to be sorted out, and I guess the courts is how we're going to do it. It'll just be interesting to see how it shakes out, but it's going to take a minute. Like they had to reschedule the hearing over whether this judge should recuse himself or not because of the weather, the recent cold spell on the East Coast. So you have to extend the TRO by another 10 days. Like it's the court system doesn't move, at a particularly fast pace. So it could be a minute before this gets resolved. But if he has to come off that roster at a certain point, Alabama's season's pretty tarnished, isn't it?
Absolutely. And I mean, this goes for Baylor in my mind, and to some extent Louisville, although I don't believe London Johnson's playing for Louisville yet, but he came off the G League to sign with Louisville at the beginning of the season. So I am actively rooting so hard against Baylor, against Louisville, especially against Bama. Nate Oates knows what he's doing. That first game back, who they played? Tennessee. And I can't remember if it was on the road or not, but regardless, I think Bama was favored and they had Bediako, and I think Bediako actually played all right. They lost. Yeah. So I mean, I never really cheered for Tennessee that hard in my life, and I'm just glad that I just hope that they don't get incredible advantage in the seeding world and like the rankings world, to where it puts them at a place of advantage to where they get they're not getting a 1 seed, right? But who knows how high they can climb, right? A 2 seed maybe. But the one thing that's been sort of a point of frustration with the committee come, Selection Sunday is they can just, oh yeah, we're counting the so-and-so injury for why this team fell down. That's why we're ranking them up higher. And it's like, that seems kind of, they have this wiggle room that's just kind of a little insane to me. But now insert this into the equation. I hope that they use that for their benefit, and dock them quite a bit. I don't know if Bama will fall far enough to be like out of the tournament, let's say. But I mean, Baylor is, I think, currently sitting outside of the tournament, or maybe fringe tournament. I honestly don't know. They've been pretty bad. Yeah, I just hope that they don't do any damage in the tournament, 1, and 2, hopefully that's enough wreckage. That's just pure insanity. Like you said, the floodgates have opened, and hopefully it's enough where the NCAA has built their, case to have more clear defining what you can and can't do marks, so where this nonsense is resolved come next season.
It's the Wild West right now.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, there's just been, as a Spartan on the as a Spartan alum and fan, like seeing the reactions to this, like kind of, tongue in cheek a little bit, with like, oh, doesn't Keon Coleman have some eligibility still, because Keon Coleman played for the MSU, transfer football mainly, but did play some basketball games, transferred to the Florida State, and then went to the Bills. Had a falling out with the Bills.
I'm sure ownership in Buffalo would approve of him.
Yeah, right. I know that it's a joke. It's a joke, but like, I mean, seeing the scenarios that people are saying, and they're obviously these scenarios are not, they're in jest, obviously, because for one, Tom Izzo wouldn't do that, and a lot of other coaches wouldn't. Like, first time I've ever agreed with Hurley at UConn, he had some pretty scathing things to say about the situation. I forgot who else has chimed in. Painter had a really good, like 3-minute like interview question about it. I highly recommend finding that because it was really, really good. So I mean, I'm just hoping that, you know, something gets done where it, you know, cements this. I feel like the NCAA, as much as we don't like, as much as just a kind of a garbage organization, like I think it behooves them to get in front of this though. Otherwise it's just lawsuit after lawsuit. So if they can solidify what the rules are, has the court's backing, I have a feeling that this is, you know, something that can be fixed, or at least some semi-regulated, in the near future. But we're hopeful that obviously that it is.
Yeah, I mean, the NCAA clearly doesn't want this to be taking place. They're the ones who have filed suit against the University of Alabama. So how do we get to a place where this kind of stuff isn't happening?
I don't know. Maybe schools get fed up and, you know, I know this seems ridiculous, but like create their own, you know, league outside of the NCAA kind of thing. So like then they're out, you know, the big paychecks. So, I mean, NCAA is very interested in getting this resolved. So I don't know. I think that this is something that they, you know, they're pressing pretty hard on. So we'll see, man. We'll see.
Yeah. And there's, and you've got pressure like the Players Era tournament, right? Is steadily turning into this significant event at the start of the season. What if the Players Era folks were like, hey, we're going to do a tournament at the end of the season and schools are going to choose to go there instead of the NCAA? Like, it's like, it is possible that like that the NCAA is going to be completely sidelined, you know, at some point in the future. So stay tuned.
I'm kind of surprised you brought up the Players Era tournament based on how San Diego State played in it, though. I
mean, Michigan also played pretty well, though. You have to admit, though, right?
I have,
right, TV?
Wow. I have admitted on many occasions that the Michigan Wolverines played really well there. Okay.
Your love for Michigan is Michigan played really well, but they have this flaw, but they have that flaw, but
I mean, hey, stay tuned. I've got some facts for you because you know, I have given them proper credit and deserved credit because it was, I mean, maybe one of the most historic, you know, non-tournament runs any team's ever seen. So we'll see when the dust settles where these teams land. You know, Gonzaga's for real, right? But we'll see. Speaking of some big college games, this last week we had a ton of really big games and a handful of upsets as well. We talked about last show about a few big games, and Texas Tech Houston was one that we had circled. Houston was the favorite in that, top 5 team. Texas Tech won that one. Again, Toppin and Anderson just dominating, looking good. They're one of the teams that I preseason predicted would be a Final Four contender, and you know, a little shaky here and there early season. Not bad, but they're really piecing it together late in the season. NC State upset Clemson in OT, I believe. So that the Wolfpack, also another team with Will Wade, now the coach there, coming in and really transforming that team into a pretty solid roster and team, you know, competitive team. So we'll see if they make a run in the ACC tournament even. They have a penchant for that, and maybe sneaking in that, like, maybe, I don't know, 6-7 seed range and making some noise in the big tournament.
Did you have any money on either of those two games?
I didn't have. I don't think I backed myself on the Texas Tech bet. Maybe I did. I got to go back to my Action Network tracker. Yeah, no. That's where I'm putting all my bets. I think I had like about 20 or so bets in the past week, and we're up 5 units. So, you know, for those $100 bettors, it's $500 right there. No big deal. But another upset, which my wife was not very happy about because she was there in person. UCLA upset Purdue. Purdue is, I think they're on a 3-game skid right now. Starting with that UCLA game, going to Mick Cronin's then at Pauley Pavilion, and coughing up the lead. Donovan Dent leading them. I mean, honestly, UCLA came really prepared and was well positioned in that game. Like, cut off a lot of. They forced everything through Braden Smith, and just he couldn't do enough to get it done. So since then, they've lost to Illinois and then Eeks at Indiana. So 3-game skid for Purdue. I don't know if that's ever happened in Braden Smith's career. So I don't know. Do you think that Purdue can bounce back from that stretch, or what?
I mean, I think any team is going to go through stretches during a season where you struggle. It's just a matter of how do you come out of it, and how long do you let the bad streak continue, and what do you do, and how do you come out of it? They're at Maryland, home against Oregon, at Nebraska, at Iowa, home against Michigan, home against Indiana, home against Sparty, at Ohio State, at Northwestern, home against Wisconsin. Michigan, Nebraska, and Michigan State are probably the tougher battles that remain for them in the regular season. Wisconsin will probably put up a fight. So, they have a relatively favorable schedule moving forward, with some tough battles still to come. But it's just like, what is your team made of? To me, this is a Final Four team, up until a week ago. Now I'm like, is it really a Final Four team? So we'll just see how they come out of it. Maryland's probably a good Maryland and Oregon are probably a good chance to like right the ship. To be honest, probably Maryland, being the better option there. Although, Indiana's not a slouch either. Yeah.
That's a rivalry team, and also playing at Assembly Hall is no joke. I mean, Indiana geared up for that game. I mean, yeah. I did pick that one on the as well. So plus 4.5. Indiana won outright by 5. I mean, Purdue has the makeup of a Final Four team. They have a senior point guard who's going to break the assist record broke the assist record in the Big Ten, or I forget exactly. He's just on pace to, I think, break the assist record. Just playing lights out. Trey Kaufman-Renn, just a really great all over the court player. Goes missing in some games. I think that's been a little bit surprise, but the real issue is Fletcher Lawyer's not been kind of that spot up 3-point shooter consistently like they need him to be. I think shooting like 36-37% and just not kind of disappears in games. But the transfer Oscar Clough is one. Oscar Clough is one of the bright spots that have joined the team. I mean, I still think they have it. They're still one of the best offenses in the league, top 2 in the nation, kind of thing. Like they're still there, and this is college basketball. It's, I think sometimes college football fans watch a stretch like this and like, well, Purdue sucks, they can't win. And it's like, that's not how it works. Like, playing 2-3 games a week on the road, going out, traveling from coast to coast, playing 2 teams, coming back, school, all that stuff. So, I mean, I think Purdue can bounce back. But I mean, but I guess we'll see. But segueing a little bit into the only pick of the day that I made last week officially was Illinois at Purdue in Mackey.
It's the last week pick recap, the part of the show where we see if we're broke.
I predicted, Purdue coming home off that UCLA loss and taking care of business against Illinois. Illinois has been one of those teams in recent years that just isn't up to the task of some of those big road games. Road games have been difficult for most, conference teams. It's a massive edge in college basketball, especially conference play. You just go on the road and it's a different animal, right? And but for Illinois in particular, just seems incredibly susceptible to dropping dropping some games on the road. So I kind of thought Purdue bouncing back after the West Coast trip, at home at Mackey, huge game against Illinois. And sure enough, Keaton Wagler was going crazy all game long. I think he scored 40 plus, was just hitting three after three after three. Mm-hmm. Purdue goes from up 5, up 6 with like 2 minutes to go, 3 minutes to go, to down 4 and like a small stretch of time, and just deflated Mackey, and they couldn't get it back. Braden Smith shoots 3 free throws, got fouled late to potentially get it close, makes only 1 of 3, and it's just not there right now for Purdue. I do think that is not a team to discount at all, and would not be excited to see them in the tournament at all. Yeah.
Bracket Matrix has them as a 3 seed right now. I don't know if I see them breaking back into the 2 seed range. Between Nebraska, Illinois, Iowa State, and Michigan State, who drops out, and who could Purdue overtake in that scenario? You've also got Gonzaga, you've got Houston and Texas Tech, who are averaging 3 seeds right now. So, I think it's going to take a lot for them to work their way back up to the first or the second tier.
They have the games ahead of themselves, so they right the ship against Maryland, Oregon, get things sorted out, and then Nebraska, Iowa, Michigan, another game against Indiana, revenge game, and then a Michigan State game. That's a brutal stretch. That's all in like 2 weeks. It's a 2-week stretch of games, so kind of nuts. Yeah. But you beat 3 top 10 teams. You beat 2 top 5 teams. You're back in it. So they have the ability to, the schedule's in front of them to make a run to get back in the top 2. But they gotta do it. So and adversity is not a bad thing to have to contend with. Like, any team is going to have its valleys during a season. It's just how do you deal with that, and how do you get better from it? So it'll be interesting to see how they respond. But three in a row is tough to see at this stage in the season. Yeah, I mean, that adversity component was why we were leaning Purdue minus 2.5 versus Illinois, and sometimes it doesn't work out. But that one didn't work. But since January 15th, tracking our bets on action, 28, 21, and 1 college hoops, good for 5.5 units or something like that. So, we're starting to cruise come conference tournament time or conference play. Jose, we called it. I think you called it. Maybe did you call it?
Oh, I don't think I called it. I think you called it.
Should have called it. That would have been good for maybe 1 or 2 units right there.
Just thinking about 2 teams that took care of business last week. Arizona took care of business against BYU. We talked about that game last
great
week. They BYU threw everything they had at him, and Arizona still came out, for the better on that one. And Michigan took care of business. You have to begrudgingly admit, I'm sure. No. But Michigan, and you got, probably one of the highlights of this coming week is going to be that Michigan State game.
Good. I am ready for it. I go back and forth on whether or not I like Michigan State playing at the Breslin the first or the final matchup, because we always play them once around Super Bowl time, or late January, early February time, and then we almost always close with them at the end of the season. And so I kind of like that closing game, because Ken Palm's currently projecting a four team tie at the top. Michigan, Michigan State, Nebraska, and Illinois at 16-4. So, I mean, to lose at Chrysler, to give Michigan the Big Ten title in general, or a share even, or to lose the Big Ten title because of it, would be pretty frustrating. But, selfishly, I'm ready to see that game play out. Michigan, I don't know what they've done in conference play. I'm looking it up right now, but I believe after starting pretty hot in December, right, they were just cruising against teams. I mean, there's no denying it. That's not even bias. There's no bias, but in conference games, they're 2-8 against the spread in conference games, and I think the first two were the first two games they played. So, when we talked about the Players Era tournament, what I was saying is getting into Big Ten play. Michigan has done this. They've not to that level. Again, no team. I don't know if any team's done it to that level where they were beating teams by 30, 40 points, top 10 teams. But they come into conference play and they just get a little bit of that physicality of Big Ten play. And it just, they're still getting wins, but it's been close. They almost lost by 2 points to Penn State, and not that I have any room to talk, Michigan State barely beat Rutgers. So, but that's the thing. That's conference play. So the Big Ten's the best conference, the toughest conference in the sport. And I mean, to have one loss, your only loss being a conference game. Granted, it was against Wisconsin, but Wisconsin's a little scrappy. They're still on an impressive run. To beat Nebraska, this last week, Tuesday was pretty impressive. What's it going to take? What's going to have to happen in order for Michigan State to take this one on Friday?
Looking ahead to next week's matchup. We're looking ahead to the games. We hope the picks are better this time, or my wife is gonna leave me. She's really gonna leave me. She's really gonna leave me.
right now, Michigan State I think it's the best defense in the nation right now, analytically. A lot of really good defensive teams out there, but they're also the best defensive rebounding team and one of the best offensive rebounding teams. So, for example, shot terribly against Rutgers. Rutgers shot great. We still end up winning. That's the kind of stuff that can keep you in games, in my opinion, more than the Kentucky, Louisville rosters. We've talked about that a bunch, where you're just throwing cash at guys that are just shooters and scorers. That's great. Like, it's getting wins. Clearly, these teams are competing. They're not hurting. But I do think when push comes to shove, and you have that really tough game, that really tough matchup, I do think being able to defend well, rebound, misses, and just punch a team in the mouth, I think it gets it done. So if I'm gonna, it's probably a little bit of a hedge, but I think Michigan State comes out victorious, solid 10-point win on Friday.
Wow.
Yeah, but I think Jeremy Fears gets Big Ten Player of the Year candidate Jeremy Fears. Put some respect on that name. I think that game on March 8th at Chrysler at Michigan, they're too good of a team. I think that they get it done there. Although we did beat them twice last year too. So, just saying.
Yeah. If Michigan State's going to be in the conversation for first place at the end of the season, then they've got to at least split the series against Michigan.
Oh, if we lose both to Michigan, then there's no chance. We lost to Nebraska already.
Yeah.
We've got one with Illinois on the schedule still, Purdue and Indiana, plus all the other games, Wisconsin, UCLA, Ohio State, at Minnesota, who's actually not been a slouch of a team that everyone kind of expected. They're losing. They've lost 5 straight Big Ten games, 2 in overtime. But they've beaten Iowa, they've beaten Indiana, they beat Northwestern, so they're not a pushover. So, but when it comes to winning the conference, I actually put some money down 2 weeks ago on Nebraska. Nebraska is one of the relatively weaker Big Ten conference schedules. So I think of the group of 4 or 5, the corresponding 4 teams that are in the top, I think they don't have any home and home with any of them. Like Michigan State has a home and home with Michigan. I think Purdue plays Illinois twice. So Nebraska has an easier schedule, and they've already taken 2 of the big games. They went at Illinois and won, and then they hosted Michigan State and pulled ahead late to get that W. So surprisingly, it was like plus 550. It's already down to like plus 300 right now. Only Michigan has better odds than that. I think Nebraska and Illinois are tied at plus 300. So I think Nebraska gets it done. They went to Michigan without their 2 of their top 3 players. Like their best player didn't play, flew. And then I don't know. God, I'm drawing a blank out his name. They were missing 2 key players. They were up by 2 at half. They were leading with like 2 minutes left. Free throw disparity. It's college hoops. I'm not gonna start crying about that, but it's huge. They shot 4 free throws. Nebraska did, and Michigan shot a ton. And what's weird is Michigan was shooting crazy good inside the arc. I don't know why they didn't keep doing it. I think they shot like 70% inside the arc, but they just kept chucking up threes. But again, that's why they might lose, Jose. But again, I think Nebraska at least earns a share of the title, based on what they've done and the schedule that's ahead of them. Maybe them and Michigan splitting it, but really it comes down, I think, to Michigan State, who takes those games. So would love to see that W on Friday, man. If so, I don't know if this channel can handle it, really.
What else should we pay attention to this coming week on the college basketball front? What's on your radar?
So kind of getting into some of the MACtion stuff. A long time ago, I was circling that Kent State at Akron game. Both teams are super fun to watch. And especially Akron, we talked about them a little bit. So that one I'm kind of excited. I'm pretty excited to watch. Although Kent State has kind of dipped a little bit in conference play, but they still look good. I bet that game is super up and down, probably really high scoring affair at like 190 points or something like that, maybe 200. BYU at Kansas. So 2 top 3 players, outside of Boozer, Diabonta and Peterson. Like these guys are absolute just animals. They're just so good, and seeing them go, I guess not head to head, but like their teams going head to head and seeing, seeing who kind of ends up victorious. I think that's going to be a hell of a game. Auburn at Tennessee also should be a good one. Tennessee on the heels of that Bama W, and then Auburn, their non-conference schedule was insane. Like they played I think Houston, Purdue, Michigan, and then one other like top 5 team. So, can't stand what Stephen Pearl or whatever his name is, but at the same time, Auburn's been doing pretty well in conference play. Tennessee, kind of hot and cold. I just think that game's going to be a real good one to watch. Those are the games that I'm looking at right now.
All right, awesome.
All right, that's all that we have for today's show. A lot of great topics, Jose. I'm excited for this week's games and the Super Bowl as well. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow our content. We've got picks of the day coming out semi-frequently. Also, follow us on Action Network. That's where we log all of our bets, video aside, so you can always track what we're betting on and what angles we're looking at. Cheers.
Cheers, buddy.
Ahead of the spread. Trivia. This is sports trivia. Thought we forgot about the trivia, probably. Trivia. Did you get it right? Probably. Trivia. Did you get it right? Probably.